I want to talk about, I want to be real clear about something. Being chaste is enough. That's enough. It sounds extreme to a lot of people, but for us it's what we do for a finite period. But while we're talking about things, several of you have asked me about food, and I want to talk about food. Now, remember what they say in Al-Anon. Take what you can use and leave the rest. So if this doesn't apply to you, just say, I can't use this, and just walk away. If you can't use it, fine. But one of our expressions is keep an open mind. So take a listen and see what you think. So here's my story about food. I left my first wife, 1989. And when I did, I pulled into the biggest hotel, the finest hotel in Atlanta, and I parked there for 5 days. And I took with me a set of CDs by a man named Bob Earl, the great ACA speaker. And Bob Earl was the John the Baptist of the recovery world. He believed in feelings, and it was his gospel. That's what he believed in, and he carried it to us, and it resonated throughout the decades because he brought it to us with his tremendous courage. So I'm sitting there at night, kind of grieving my first wife, and I'm listening to these CDs, and one of the things that Bob Earl says is that if you want to get in touch with your feelings, give up red meat. Now, when I heard that, my response is what my response is always when I hear somebody with a better spiritual idea than me. I think, you're crazy. Of course, he wasn't crazy, and I tried it, and sure enough, I did it for 4 months. I was able to feel my anger, and feel sadness, and feel hurt, and feel neediness, and feel sexiness, and feel paranoid, and feel confusion, and feel glee, and all the panoply of 1,000 feelings that I can identify within my body. So that was my first experience. And after about 4.5 months, I got to thinking, wonder about white meat. And so just as an experiment, I gave up pork and chicken and turkey. Just to see what, now I was still eating fish. I was eating big swordfishes and big tuna fishes, tuna steaks and things like that. And sure enough, as I gave those things up, I was more in touch with my feelings. And at the time, I was going through the first of 5 custody cases. And I really wanted to I had to prove that I was a better father, that I was emotionally a better father. So being more emotionally available, if it meant giving up certain foods so that I could be a better father, so I could raise my daughter. Small sacrifice. So that was really the motivation. That, and I wanted to be healthy. And I figured Bob Earl was probably right. So now it's red meat and white meat. I had the first rock and roll studio in America in 1982, and I hired a lot of professionals. And one of them was a studio singer. And he came in one day and said, I've got this great idea that makes me a better singer. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, give up dairy. And I thought, as I always think, you're crazy. I always think you're crazy if you have a better idea than I do. Always. That's my instant knee-jerk reaction. But I remembered my experience with Bob Earl and the red meat and the white meat. I thought, why don't you try it? Now, at the time, I didn't really know much about food, and I thought eggs were dairy. I thought eggs and dairy were like one subset. And so I figured, well, if you're going to give up dairy, give up eggs, because I was confused. So I gave up dairy and eggs, and wouldn't you know, I felt more. I could feel more. There were things in my body that when I let them go, I could feel more. And then when I feel more, I have something, as you guys know, to give to you so that you can hold on to me and we can connect. And that's important with friends or lovers or children or God or anything like that. It's a way to connect. So at that point here we got red meat, white meat, and dairy and eggs. And I'm going along pretty good like that, and that's feeling pretty good. Now, by the way, I had given up sugar before this. My first wife and I used to get those big chocolate bars, those ones at the checkout stands at Walgreens, and just break them in two, and that was our dessert. And I thought, this is going to be fat, and I didn't want to be fat, so I'd given up sugar because I'm vain. And so I didn't want to be fat, so I'd given up sugar, red meat, and white meat, and dairy and eggs. And so things go along pretty good. And then I was reading about cancer, and I wanted to be healthy because I believe that my higher power wants me to be healthy. That's what I believe for me. Now, it may not be true for you. Your God may want you to be sick, but I doubt it. But it was for me that God wanted me to be healthy. And as I looked at it, I found that there were carcinogens that were being put in or non-organic materials. And I didn't want to die of cancer. And so I stopped eating anything that wasn't organic. And so at this point, with the exception of fish, I'm organic and a vegan. And I kept going with the fish thing. I really didn't want to go with the fish because I really liked it. I used to steam that stuff up and it was really fun and juicy. But finally I gave that up too. And not surprisingly, I could feel more. Not a lot more with the fish. That was negligible, but noticeable, and I gave it up. Then there was a guy, and one of the monks on the site, MJ. MJ was seeing what I was doing with food, and he thought, and he took the ball farther down the road. He went into a living food institute someplace in the South. And when he came back, he said, Steve, there's some other things that you might want to know about. And one of them is raw foods. And I thought, you're crazy, which is what I always think. And then he explained to me, he said, when you cook food above 112 degrees Fahrenheit, the enzymes in the food that are used to, enzymes are in your body to protect you from illness. Like AIDS is an extremely advanced form of inability to protect your body from illnesses. But in a much, much smaller, more benign, but very real form, other kinds of illnesses are prevented by having these types of enzymes. That's what they're for in your body. That's one of the things. They break down food in your stomach as well. And after I got over my initial shock and thinking he was crazy, I tried it. And I felt more energetic because the food wasn't cooked. And at that point, I signed up for that. So at that point, I'm a raw, organic vegan. Moved to San Francisco 2003. Run across the people at Cafe Gratitude, Matthew and Tercy Englehart. Brilliant, genius level people about food, way smarter than me. I'm in FA. Well, actually, I'm in OA at the time. I haven't joined FA yet because I didn't know about FA. And I started talking to people about raw foods and then their living foods. And everybody I knew, every single person had that confused. That there was raw food and living foods were the same. And that's not true. Even Matthew and Tercy were confused. Living food is food that's actually living when you eat it. And that's a very, very tiny, tiny subset of all the food that's available. It consists mostly of nuts and seeds, which are sprouted, and wheatgrass. Those are things that are actually living. And what I found was when I experimented and moved from raw to living, that there was an ameliorative, a healing part of food that had nothing to do with raw organic vegan. It actually healed my body. And what that meant was I had bad athlete's foot on one of my feet for years, and my doctor wouldn't give me the medication because they said, A, it's $1,000 a dose, and B, it's life-threatening. After 6 years, they finally gave that to me. I tried it, it was good for a year, but when I took the wheatgrass, it healed it and it never came back. It never came back. And I learned something, that living food actually heals your body. Now, I don't want to get too far off in this left-wing, crazy San Francisco, type of stuff that I'm talking that we're also accused of, and maybe rightly so from time to time. I don't want to get too far off into the left, but my experience is it does heal my body. So I use a lot of living foods in my food plan. And so, but the problem with living foods, I found, is I had to grow them, and that became very cumbersome for me. I was going on my garden on the roof, and it became just a lot of work to grow 17 by 17 trays, 39 at a time, to produce wheatgrass 3 times a day. And so I stopped doing that about 6 months ago, and I backed off to a more moderate place right now, where I'm having raw organic vegan food 3 times a day. That's what I'm doing about food. Now, like I said, there are over 209 12-step programs in the world, and the one that's got the hardest denial to break, in my experience and observation, is food addiction. That, for some reason, there's more shame about sex addiction. There's more body slam about alcoholism and drug addiction. But food addiction is the most denial. It's the hardest to break denial. So if you're a food addict or not a food addict, or just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you want to use this or don't use it. It's just something to think about. For those of you in the group, the 40 of you that are in the group, take what you can use and leave the rest. That's it.